You picked up your phone this morning before you even opened your eyes. You don't remember deciding to do it. Your hand just moved, like it was pulled. And somewhere between unlocking the screen and putting it back down, 5 minutes disappeared, and you're not entirely sure what you were even looking for. Because the real reason you can't stop checking your phone has nothing to do with addiction in the way you've been told. It has nothing to do with weakness or laziness or a lack of willpower. The truth is far older than the smartphone. It's older than the internet. It's older than language itself. Your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. And the people who designed your phone figured that out long before you did. Let's go back, not to Silicon Valley, not to the 1990s. Go back roughly 200,000 years to a version of you standing on an open plain somewhere in East Africa. You are small, you are slow. You have no claws, no venom, no armor. What you have is a brain. And that brain has one job above everything else. Don't die. The way you don't die is by noticing things. Every rustle in the grass, every shift in the light, every sound that doesn't quite fit the pattern. Your ancestors who ignored those signals didn't survive long enough to become your ancestors. The ones who constantly scanned, who were always checking, always alert to something new in the environment, those are the ones who made it. Neuroscientist Jaak Panksepp spent decades mapping the emotional systems of the mammalian brain. He identified what he called the seeking system, a network of dopamine pathways that doesn't reward you for finding things. It rewards you for looking. The act of searching, scanning, pursuing, that's what triggers the release. The brain doesn't want you to arrive. It wants you to keep going. Think about what that means. Your brain has a built-in engine that makes searching feel good. Not finding, searching. And that engine was tuned over hundreds of thousands of years to keep you scanning your environment for anything new, anything different, anything that might matter. Now put that brain in front of a glowing rectangle that never runs out of new things. Every time you pull down to refresh your feed, you are performing the exact same neurological gesture your ancestor made when they scanned the tree line for movement. The motion is almost identical. Look, check. Anything there? Look again. Psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered something in the 1950s that became the blueprint for every slot machine, every social media notification, and every infinite scroll ever built. He called it variable ratio reinforcement. When you reward a behavior every single time, the behavior becomes predictable and eventually boring. But when you reward it unpredictably, sometimes, maybe, you never quite know when, the behavior becomes compulsive. Pigeons in his lab would press a lever thousands of times without stopping. Not because food always came, because food sometimes came, and they couldn't tell when. Your phone is a lever. Your notifications are pellets, and you are not weaker than a pigeon. You are running the same ancient software. The design teams at the major platforms understood this. Sean Parker, the founding president of Facebook, said it plainly in a 2017 interview. He described the platform as being built to exploit a vulnerability in human psychology. The goal was to give users a little dopamine hit every once in a while, because someone liked or commented on their post, to get them to contribute more content and to come back more often. He wasn't describing a flaw in the design. He was describing the design. And here is where it gets strange. Because the phone doesn't just tap into your seeking drive. It taps into something even older. Something that kept your ancestors alive in a very different way. Humans are a profoundly social species. More social, in many ways, than almost any other primate. For the vast majority of human history, being rejected by your group was a death sentence. You couldn't survive alone on the open plain. You needed the group to hunt, to share food, to protect each other's children, to warn each other about danger. So your brain evolved an extraordinary sensitivity to social signals. A glance from the wrong person, silence where there should be conversation, the feeling of being left out. These things register in the brain not as minor discomfort, but as genuine threat. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman, in his research at UCLA, found that social pain activates the same neural regions as physical pain. Being excluded doesn't just hurt your feelings. To your brain, it hurts the same way a burn hurts. Now ask yourself what you are actually checking when you check your phone. Did anyone respond to what I said? Did anyone like it? Am I being included? Am I being ignored? Is someone talking about me? Did I miss something important in the group? You are running ancient social threat detection software 20, 30, 80 times a day. You are scanning for signs of exclusion with the same urgency your ancestor felt when the group went quiet around the campfire. The red notification dot is not an accident. Red is the color the human visual system is most sensitive to, especially for threat detection. It's the color of blood, of fire, of danger. A red circle in your peripheral vision is almost impossible to ignore because your brain is wired to treat it as a priority. The designers know this. They chose that color deliberately. Research by psychologist Larry Rosen found that most people check their phones within the first 15 minutes of waking up, and that the anxiety produced by not checking, what he terms technofrence, is physiologically measurable. Your heart rate changes, your cortisol shifts. Your body registers the absence of your phone the same way it registers a mild threat. You're not addicted in the way someone is addicted to heroin. The mechanism is different. What you are is a highly evolved social primate running a threat detection and novelty-seeking system inside an environment that was engineered with extraordinary precision to trigger it constantly. And the cruelest part? The seeking never gets satisfied, because the feed never ends. The notifications never stop. There is always one more thing. Your brain cannot reach the point of completion because completion was never built into the system. You were supposed to be scanning a finite plane. There were only so many trees to check, only so many faces in the group to read. The loop had a natural end. Now the loop has no end. And so the seeking continues. Not because you're broken, because you're working exactly as designed, both by evolution and by the engineers who studied your evolution and built a mirror of it in glass and code. So what do you do with that? Knowing the mechanism doesn't automatically free you from it, but it does change what you're fighting. You're not fighting laziness, you're not fighting weakness, you're fighting 200,000 years of neurological engineering, plus a $1 trillion industry that has spent decades figuring out how to point it at a screen. That's not a personal failure, that's a structural problem. What researchers have found is that the most effective interventions aren't about willpower. They're about environment. If the phone is in the room, your brain is partially attending to it. If the phone is in another room, that pull drops dramatically. Not because you're stronger, because the trigger is gone. Your brain can't seek what it can't sense. The variable reward loop also breaks when you introduce predictability. Checking email twice a day on a schedule isn't less efficient than checking it constantly. For most people, it's more efficient, and it takes the slot machine out of your pocket. But the deepest shift isn't behavioral, it's perceptual. When you understand what the phone is actually doing, when you see it not as a failure of discipline, but as a precisely engineered trigger for ancient drives, you stop being ashamed of reaching for it. And when the shame goes, the compulsion gets quieter. Not silent, quieter. Because what you were really looking for, every time your hand moved before your eyes were open, it wasn't a notification. It wasn't a like. It wasn't news. You were scanning for the same thing your ancestors scanned for on the open plain. Safety, connection, a sign that the group was still there. And every morning, when you pick up the phone before you've even opened your eyes, you're doing exactly what a social primate who cares about its people has always done. You're checking if everyone is okay. The technology is new. The need is 200,000 years old. And tonight, before you fall asleep, when your hand reaches for the phone one more time, you'll know exactly why.